So here they are. They got the toit, and they painted Harcouf white. Now, why is it that if Harcouf is white, why didn't they paint the toit white and vice versa? So looking at this is no different than looking at Halle and the toit. Same thing. But they painted the brother, a man who was a governor of the South, a man who grew up in Nubia, in southern Egypt. They painted him white. And so I had a brother take me to Harcouf's tomb. And here's Brother Harcouf. And look at Brother Harcouf. Bears no resemblance to this one. In fact, Brother Harcouf, look at Brother Harcouf's lips. He looked just like the brother that showed me Harcouf's tomb. So Brother Harcouf is happy today in heaven. We're clearing his name. So they found this piece in Mexico, and they said, wow, how are we going to cover up this one? So this is what they wrote about this piece. The Negro features of this head from Veracruz in Mexico seems to testify to the presence in pre-Columbian America of black Africans, who were often galley slaves on Phoenician ships. Black slaves were first introduced by the Spaniards at the beginning of the 16th century. Now he's got two statements here. I don't understand the last part, but I know the first part is what they traditionally do is whenever you talk about African people, somehow it's got to be the slave land. The old slave people from the old slave land. Always a slave. You historically have always been a slave. Whenever you show up anywhere on the planet, I was looking at a screw that was supposed to have been invented by Archimedes going back into Hellenistic times, and they had a brother operating the screw, and they put slave on there. Now, the inscription nowhere on the piece, but they just put slave underneath it. Slave operating the screw. This is how they treat us. We move on. And so they have Christopher here in bright red, how he came over in 1492. They talk about Eric the Red, Leif Erikson, how he came over. And even with the Phoenicians, they kind of put a dotted line here because it's questionable. And when they do get over and allow them to come over, they say, well, if they came over and if there were blacks with them, those blacks who came over with them were the galley slaves who helped to pedal the ship over here. That's how they treat us. So here we have the Egyptian hieroglyphic of Medu Neter writing, which is the parent of the Sinai inscription. The Sinai inscription is the parent of the Phoenician script. The Phoenician script was the parent of the early Greek script. Obviously, the Greek script is the parent of the Roman script, which is the script that we use today throughout the Western civilization. Whether you're in Spain, in France, in Germany, in England, in America, anywhere that you find Europeans and their descendants, you find a script that is Roman, that is Greek, that is Phoenician, that is Sinaitic, that is Egyptian. Why did they teach us this in school? Maybe I would have been a better writer if I knew that the letter that I was writing with was the letter that I had invented. They didn't teach us this. So here you find that the Phoenicians are beholden to the Sinaitic, and the Sinaitic are beholden to the Egyptians, and we know from the latest discoveries in Tasseti and in Cuzco that the script preceded the Egyptians by several generations in Nubia. Then the Egyptians themselves are beholden to the land of Punt, to the God's land. This is important that we make these kinds of parallels. Let's look at the lies that they're telling. Let's look even at the Bible that they say they go by. I go by the Bible. I go by the Bible. Quit going by the Bible. Go in the Bible and take a look at what the lies, the same lie that you've been telling us all the time. Here in the Bible, you have in the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Punt, and Canaan. Now Ham, we should all be in agreement. White folks were happy to tell us that we were the cursed race. They were happy to tell us that the black race were the Hamitic race. Isn't this what they said? So then there should be a consensus amongst even white folks that Ham represents the black nations. I mean, if it's not Ham, who is it? Shem is the Asiatic, and Japheth are the whites. So that leaves Ham, the black people of the earth. So let's look at Ham and his progeny. Let's look at his offspring. And the sons of Cush, which is the son of Ham, the son of black. So let's put it to this. Let's put it this way. Black had Black Jr., which is Cush. Black Jr., Cush, had sons Sheba and Havilah. And Cush, Black Cush, gave a black son named Nimrod. This black son of Cush began to be a mighty one on the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of black Nimrod civilization was Babel, Erech, Akkad, the very places that we say are the cradle of civilization. This is important because Mesarine, you have to look at the code words, look it up in the Oxford Biblical Atlas like I did, and you find that Mesarine is Egypt. So Egypt is the son of the black. Ham, the Hebrew word Cam, comes from black, which means birth, or burning. The Egyptian symbol of Kemet, or Cam, was a black burning rock. It was from this black burning rock that the god Kulamun fashioned man, the first man, from the earth. This black burning rock, which they call Kemet, Kemet-ta means the black land, Kemet-tu means the black people, Kemet-nu means the black nation. From this word Kim, or Cam, the Hebrews got the word Ham, which means the black. So these are the black nations, and so it's clear that Nimrod, the founder of Mesopotamia, was an African who had come from Ethiopia, from the land of Cush, from the Tar-Netter. Well, why won't they say this? Where is the preacher at today on Sunday preaching his sermon? Why didn't he say this today in the church? We move on. So it becomes very apparent that the land of Canaan, which is none other than the Phoenicians themselves, the land of Canaan were not galley slaves. The Ethiopians and the Egyptians were not galley slaves to Canaan, but in fact they gave birth to Canaan, and Canaan was in fact their offspring, which is Phoenicia. So see how the lies come back to hunt them when you show them something clear and simple? Here's Canaan, otherwise known as ancient Phoenicia, the offspring of Cush of Ethiopia. But they said that the Phoenicians had galley slaves who were Negroes, when they were Negroes themselves, according to the Bible. So when we look at this thing, we got to take a good look at this. You know how Willie Mays could run and make a basket catch and turn around and throw a man out at the plate? I bet you Willie Mays could stand right here and throw a ball and hit somebody in the head over there in Lebanon. Look how close that is to Kemet, to Egypt. The greatest nation on the earth that stood for 3,000 years continuously. 1,000 years by itself as the world's first organized and structured nation. And you mean to tell me some hillbillies and some desert in the desert are going to come up with something all by themselves, a religion all by themselves, navigating principles all by themselves, a language all by themselves? No, when you look carefully at the situation, you find that the language is coming from there, the oral tradition is coming from there, the written tradition is coming from there, the monuments are coming from there, all of it is coming from the Nile Valley. Look how close it is. Take a swim down the coast. Take a dinner cruise and come back home. This is what the pharaohs were doing. They controlled these seas for almost 3,000 years. Nothing came in here to destroy Kemet until the very end. So when you look at this art, you say, wow, that's some beautiful Kemetic art. The only problem is that this is not Kemetic art, this is Phoenician art. So the Phoenician art began to reflect that art of the teacher. Just like the things that we do today in America reflect those who've taught us. Again, this looks like Osiris, or the crown of Osiris. But this is a Phoenician crown. And when you look at the pharaoh Sesostris or Senusret, his crown is no different from the crown of the Phoenicians. Because this is where they got it from him. This brother colonized the Mediterranean world. Him and those who preceded him. In fact, according to Herodotus, he had developed a colony as far up as the Black Sea. This whole area was under Kemetic colonization. And don't take my word for it, let's go to Herodotus. He wrote, and the Egyptians talking about these people, the Greeks were trying to figure out, well, how did these black people get all through this area? How did they get up here? And Herodotus said, well, I think that they were probably from Sesostris' army because, as we know, thousands of years before I was born, before I got any education, I read that the Sesostris had a colony of blacks all the way up to that area. And so this is how he wrote it. The Egyptians did, however, say that they thought the original Colossians were men from Sesostris' army. My own idea on the subject was based on the fact that they have what? Black skins and woolly hair. And not that that amounts to much as other nations have the same, such as India. And secondly, and more especially, on the fact that the Colossians, the Egyptians, and the Ethiopians are the only races which from ancient times have practiced circumcision. So not only did they have the black complexion, not only did they have actually the rite of circumcision, but the whole concept of the